that's something that's important to put, I don't know. We also defeated, and this is really important because there should be no sacred cows. And I think it's important for us, and it behooves us, that if we're going to be cutting things like Medicare, cutting things like programs that are important to other people, we also should put everything on the table. We also defeated a wasteful F-35 second engine program that the military had told us that they didn't want. The military told us that it wasn't necessary, and we actually killed it on the House floor. And I'm very proud of that because we decided that all things should be on the table and we should be responsible. We still have more work to do. And I think the most important thing that we can do, we need to do it at the state level and at the federal level. We need to create a stable economy so businesses have the confidence to hire and to innovate. We must remove regulatory burdens that hinder employers from creating jobs. And we need to continue to say no to new taxes. Ronald Reagan was absolutely right when he said that government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. As all of you know, the next big challenge for us is the budget for fiscal year 2012 and also the debt ceiling fight. I know these challenges are great, and I'm new to Congress, and I understand that it's going to take us some time to face these challenges. But I'm not going to be fooled by those who ask us to be patient when what they really want us to be is silent. Wanting to make big changes quickly sometimes ruffles some feathers. And I think I've been known for ruffling a few feathers. Sometimes I'm grouped with my fellow reformers and labeled as a Tea Party freshman. I'm proud to be associated with those who have stood up for liberty, but I do have to say that that label by itself does not define me. The Tea Party has become, that term has become really emotionally charged, and actually we're just talking about this at the table. I think the pundits, the people in MSNBC don't really understand what the Tea Party movement. Let me tell you what I think the Tea Party movement is. Americans are willing to reckon with the fact that the United States has borrowed and spent to the point that our financial solvency as a country is in imminent danger. Their family, their friends, their neighbors and others who are tired of being ignored by their elected officials, and they want to be heard. They're forgotten men and women who find themselves used as piggy banks, but they're not used for their knowledge and their experience and their love of the country. I think that's what the Tea Party is, and I think it behooves my party to understand that and to listen to them, because I think they share in the frustration that most Americans share, that they're sick and tired of their government not listening to them and not doing the right thing. The battle over debt and spending, which is truly a battle over liberty, will consume most of our efforts in Congress for this year. It's the biggest problem we face. My goal in the beginning was to cut, and I will continue to try to cut as much as I can. Getting our debt under control is not a cosmetic political ploy, and it has to stop being a cosmetic political ploy. We need to stop playing politics with the debt issue, with the amount of spending that we're doing. We need to be serious about what we're doing in Washington, D.C. It is literally a matter of survival for our nation. Many of my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, are ready to take the drastic actions needed to address our debt problem. Our massive debt is not a Republican or a Democratic problem. It's a national problem. And for this reason, I actually agree with something that President Obama said 2 years ago. He said, what we have done is kick this can down the road. We are now at the end of the road and are not in a position to kick it any further. We have to signal seriousness in this by making sure some of the hard decisions are made under my watch, not someone else's. Well, we'll see how sincere Obama is about that. Some say that a failure to raise the debt limit will result in total collapse of the U.S. and global financial system. The U.S. will default on all its loans, and they claim that credit ratings will plummet. Well, I think it would be irresponsible for us to raise the debt ceiling without making the necessary changes that are necessary. We need to address the consequences of continuing to go further into debt, consequences of raising the debt limit as both parties have done in the past. I refuse to vote for more borrowing unless dramatic changes such as spending cap or a balanced budget amendment are enacted. The fight over spending is just one of many fights. We have slowly drifted away from the federal system that the founders envisioned. Time for the fundamental shift to the way our federal government operates and what it does. And this is going to require new approaches by our cities, by our counties, and by our state governments. And it will require change in how many Americans have come to view the role of the government in their lives. 4 years ago, I decided to run for the state legislature. And I actually love that job. I actually met with some of my friends from the state legislature today. It's something that I would have done for free. That's how much I enjoyed it. It was something that I really, really loved, and I miss it quite a bit. But I think that we did the right thing, and I want to thank the state legislators and the governor and the people that are here who did the right thing over the last 4 years. We made responsible decisions in this state. We balanced the budget, we cut spending, and we met all of our obligations without raising taxes. During that time, I watched the federal government fail time and time again. Federal debt and unemployment rates skyrocketed. Personal responsibility stripped away and were replaced with government control. I got angry, and like many of you here who got angry watching that. And I decided after much discussion with my family and friends to enter the Republican primary for the U.S. House. At the time, I think everyone in the world, except for my family and a few close friends, thought that I was crazy. And I am crazy, so maybe there's something to that. But I knew better, and the people around me knew better as well. I had a strong message. I followed my gut, not the polls, not the pundits, and I took my message around the 1st Congressional District. I backed up my words with my actions in the state legislature, where I built a record of fighting for limited government. After the primary, I then went on to a general election, and I joined a large group of insurgent Republicans that were demeaned in the press and consistently given little chance of victory. Although our class is large and diverse, we have one thing in common, and that's our message. A message of lowering taxes, a message against government-run health care, a message that government does not create jobs, but creates an environment for businesses to create jobs. A message that the federal government must exercise fiscal restraint like we do in our families and in our businesses. A message of the sanctity of life. A message of the power of the family. A message of the need to protect the Second Amendment. A message against overreaching government. A message of freedom and the unique greatness of America. I'm working to turn this message into action. Even with almost $15 trillion in debt, this is still the greatest country in the world. We can reclaim our financial solvency, and by doing so, pass the promise of freedom along to our children and to our grandchildren. The Idaho Freedom Foundation mission to educate the public about limited government and freedom is vital to us winning the battle we are in with people who simply don't care how much we spend. They just want to win the next election. I ask you that you stick with me during these hard budget battles. I'm going to promise you that every single one of you is going to be upset with the decision that I make. Every one of you is going to be disappointed that we have to cut a program that is important to you. Reduced federal spending will affect you or your neighbors in some way and might make your life a little bit less comfortable. But we must all share in the sacrifice to get our country back on track. We did not get in this situation overnight, but there is a palpable sense that Washington's business as usual culture is coming to an end. Don't give up the fight to save this great nation, and don't hesitate to tell me when I'm not doing what I promised. And several of you, I'm sure I'm never going to hesitate to do that. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for the privilege of representing you in Washington, D.C.